I'll introduce myself. So Albert Zulps, I work for Skanska USA Building, but actually I've had the fortune of cross-pollinating and working with all different business units, building and commercial development, civil, and also working overseas as well too. So some of what I'm going to show you today are things that I think it's meant to be more of a case study. So these are like little individual snippets of things we've done. Some of them are dead ends. Some of it is generally just to tell the story. So you'll see some companies that I'll mention that you might not think are out there anymore. They're still kind of, they're going to resurface. But there's a lot of stuff out there that's going on. That wasn't the right one. I think it was the other one. I think I had it the right one.
You're not seeing it.
I pushed it in farther. Here. Well, this is part of doing a live demo, right? It worked yesterday. And you saw it earlier, right? Didn't you? Yeah. Okay. So my background, I'm an architect, a mechanical engineer, and working as a contractor now. Great, it's working. That's the wrong slide, but that's a good start. Okay, so the topic today is the perfect storm. So there's a few things that have happened. So I'm going to kind of dumb things down a bit. I'm really impressed to be talking with all these like scientists and people working for NASA, but I'm not one of them. So don't take it too personally if I don't understand your questions sometimes. So I'm looking at the perfect storm for a construction site. We have the Internet of Things. We have a way that things can communicate. We have sensors that gives us something to talk about. So we need to have data and sensors and cameras. And then we also have analytics or cloud computing, or we could actually add artificial intelligence in there. So all these things coming together at this point in time in history is not kind of overwhelming, but it's creating tremendous opportunities for us on our job site. So that's the thesis of what we're talking about today. And I'll give you some examples of that. I'll touch on a lot of what other people have talked about and hopefully add some more dimensions to what you've seen. So the first thing is the Internet of Things, Jobsite Connectivity. Stanley Black & Decker or DeWalt, they have a job box they've announced. I think you can buy it now, but basically there's a lot of companies out there trying to figure out how to ruggedize and bring something out to the construction site, knowing that it's a dangerous place. There's a lot of moving parts, has to be ruggedized and heavy duty and long batteries and things like that. So they're trying to develop these devices to bring Wi-Fi to the job site. And maybe in a civil job or an outdoor job where there's more access to satellites and things like that, it works fine. But a lot of construction happens in tunnels and underground. So connectivity is actually a really big deal as well too. So there are a lot of solutions. I just thought I'd show a couple. That's one that's out there right now. There are others. There's companies out there like Human Condition. They were purchased, I guess some of you know, by AIG. And I think right now they're doing some restructuring internally. But they've actually, they create the network, they create all the sensors, including the biometric sensors, and then they have the analytics and the tool in real time. So I'm using these slides. They're probably a couple years old, but I think they really show what a wearable could be. And I think I have a better view over here. So the idea that you can track with a motion sensor where someone is, track their activity, their heart rate, all sorts of things. So these are all things that are kind of common in all the different lectures we've had today. I think what I'm going to kind of talk about a lot is knowing where you are, the location. So a lot of this information is not useful unless you know where you are. So I'll be doing a lot of talking about location. And also my secondary duty within the company is working with VDC and BIM and safety. So what I do, the problem that we heard before, I think that Peggy mentioned, you have to have a problem, first of all, is safety, making our projects safer, efficiency, to improve our operational efficiency, and then also, in our case, reducing claims. So the transparency, and that's where location is very important, knowing if somebody hurt themselves, where it was, and what the conditions were. So shortly we'll be going into a demo, and it's going to be enabled by those forces I talked about, the Internet of Things. In this case, we're going to be looking at red point positioning. So Chunji Dwan was nice enough to come down and set up his system for us to use as a demo, but there's a lot of other systems out there using, this one's using ultra wideband, there's ones using 900 megahertz, using low energy Bluetooth, or just ambient like noise and radiation signatures and things like that. So the ultra wideband will be our way to communicate. The analytics, in this case, it will be a server. I'll show you in a minute where that is, but there's a server here. It's not going to the cloud in this case. And then the sensors. So I think without further ado, I will put on on my gear and have some fun. So I haven't actually charged this. This probably doesn't work now, but this is the RealWear device. So we have these. I have a safety vest with a sensor embedded. Okay. So far, you guys are entertained? It's fun? Okay, good. Okay, so I look like I know what I'm doing, right? Other than I'm wearing like a suit jacket underneath my work vest. And I wore the wrong boots today. Okay, and then what I've done is in the presentation I have a couple videos, but there's so many great speakers here, I feel it's a shame to push a button and actually watch a video. So the first one is if you go to redpointpositioning.com, you can watch the video I was going to show, but I think you can all do that in your spare time if you're really curious. And if you're not, I saved you 5 minutes of your life, so that's pretty cool. So I'm going to start up the system now. So can you all see that? Good. Okay, so yesterday I came in and I modeled the space and drew it accurately, but just like any construction site, the furniture arrangement completely changed. So I came back again this morning and I moved the tables around, but the first thing I notice on a construction site is it changes all the time. So to have this, I think the first thing that would be nice to solve is having this linked with a 4D schedule. That would be pretty cool. So in this case, we have a room that's stationary. It's easy to demonstrate. And if I start walking around, I'm hoping to God this thing follows me. And it does. So it's actually quite accurate. It's accurate within a couple of feet. And this was done by Chunji in a few minutes setting this room up. So if you really need accuracy, you can get it. There's other systems out there that give you location within like a room or a quadrant of a building or the footprint of the building. But this one's actually pretty accurate. You'll also notice that I drew, previously I drew this blue boundary on here. If I hover over it, it tells me that's my no escape zone. So if I can't set up the exclusion zone, if I try to go across that line, it will start flashing. And it'll tell me I'm in the wrong area. So in a construction site, you can set up alerts for if someone is not allowed on a roof, they don't have the fall protection training, there's a fall hazard, there's crane operations overhead. You can set up those zones on the fly. So this is part of a live demo. I'm actually going to create a zone. So I'm going to create a new zone, and I'm going to put it on this side of the stage. So basically I'm saying, I'm not allowed on this side of the stage. And you can see now by the type it says keep out. If I look right over here, it's a keep out zone. And I can change the name of the zone to whatever I want to. And I'm going to save that. So now that zone is in there. And it's done on an iPad or it's done quite easily. So now if I walk into that zone and keep my fingers crossed again, see what happens. Should start flashing, and if you have an iPad or a beacon, it will buzz and do all sorts of things. So I think just that in itself, that location accuracy, is kind of like, I had a friend that, well, I lived in Singapore for a few years. He started a Chinese restaurant in Australia, and he always told people he didn't put MSG on the food, but he put MSG in the food. And everyone loved his food and thought it was great and it was healthy, but he always said MSG makes things more better. So I think that real-time location just makes everything more better. It's just a good thing to have. So. And it's healthier than MSG, I think, too. So now that I've done that, a little bit of the analytics side of things, I can go back here and go into the heat map. And I can't remember what settings I have, but I'm going to load a heat map. And so it only has the vest. That's the only thing active. But if you had more people or workers active, you can do that. I'm going to go OK. And that's for the last 15 minutes. And you can see where I've been hanging out for the last few minutes here. So you can imagine on a construction site, knowing, just even if you anonymize your workforce, knowing by trade who is where, when, for lean planning, looking at pinch points, that's extremely powerful as well too. So I think there's also a live playback, and of course all this information can be archived. So you could do, with artificial intelligence, something real-time analytics or some feedback with machine learning, or you could actually go through the material later. If there's a claim or something happening later, you could go back and you could justify where people were exactly by this methodology too. So hope that was interesting for you. That was my live demo. I don't think it failed. And one more thing I thought I'd just for the fun of it, just to make it interesting. So there's audience participation. If I can have a couple volunteers. You, sir, you look like you want to be a volunteer. Oops, and you want to be a volunteer too? And if you can just stand back there, hold the line across and stand back along there somewhere. I just want to make sure. And keep going until you hit between the second and third table. Okay, you're the exclusion zone. So I'm not allowed to go there. My badge says that I'm not allowed to go in that area. There's another subcontractor's working in there. So if I was to walk through, you can hold the tape. I'm going to run across. I'm a runner as well too. So I'm going to run across. No, go back here. Come back here. See the line on the screen? That's right between those tables there. Good. Okay. I'm going to come running through. I'm running first of all. I shouldn't be. And I cross the line and I get in trouble. So that's how this system works basically. So, yeah. You can keep the tape. That's yours. Okay. Okay, back to PowerPoint. So I hope you guys don't go to sleep now. Okay. So the live demo. So another company that I like a lot is Triax. So they have another technology that's similar. It's not as accurate location-wise, but the batteries last quite a while, and they have a pretty mature dashboard. And that actually has a badge that you wear like this. And it clips on your waist belt, and it has an accelerometer. And really, it's not very invasive. It can't tell. It could kind of tell I'm in this room probably, but it wouldn't know exactly where. So it doesn't really spy on you, and it only works with on the job site with the 900 megahertz Wi-Fi that's set up. So for privacy, you leave the job site, it turns off, but it logs you in, logs you out, so you know you can do a timesheet. And also, there's a button to send alerts if you're hurt, like help I fall and can't get up. You can send out messages if there's a recall, there's any kind of muster, then you can send a message out for that. And it has an accelerometer, so when it's clipped on your waist, it actually has some intelligence to know if I've dropped it versus if it's clipped on and if I've fallen. So it can record incidents as well and send an alert to your supervisor if you fall into. So this kind of device here is, I think, the way of the future, and it's one of the wearables. It's not quite a wrist wearable, but it's a pretty good compromise for construction. And that's the video too. If you go to triaxtech.com, you can see that video too. Okay, Caterpillar is here, and we're hoping to do a trial with them soon in some of their wearables. And what we're doing right now at LaGuardia Airport is we're using Cat Detect. And that basically is, the one we're using is a system of RFID tags that you stick on a sticker to your hard hat, so it gets all the cardinal directions. And if you walk within a certain distance of heavy equipment, it will alert the operator that you're there in a blind spot. So the next iteration of this, I would imagine, will be something with cameras and facial recognition and things like that to know that it's a worker or a post or something and help the driver. But for now, this is what we're using. And I haven't heard any feedback on this yet. A lot of the stuff I'm talking about today, we're just starting to play with now, so I don't have a lot of conclusions. But I do have a problem, and I do have a toolbox. So I think that we're in a good place. So for real-time location, some of the things we're looking at are the certifications. You can have a tag or a badge. When you issue that, you can have the OSHA training, and any site job training is on there. So that could be like a credential or a resume for the worker. And then you can use it also for exclusion zones, keep out for different reasons. For job site visibility, you know the whole site's evacuated, where people are. A lot of times wayfinding is an issue, trying to find your way out. This could help you get out of a job site. And obviously for productivity, for lean construction, you can map where people are walking, and you can reduce the footsteps. And I saw earlier a presentation with a lot of lines on it, and I was wondering how they created those, but that's really great that you could actually track where people are and then be able to move computers and things around to increase productivity. Okay, so changing gears now to model access in the field. Once again, if you have location, if you're doing a punch list or anything like that, put the MSG on, put location on, and it's excellent to have. But now wearing a wearable, headset wearable, it makes it even better. If you could do all that, do your punch list, have your iPad out, but have your iPad suspended, that makes things easier. Your hands are free, and for the most part, your vision is unobscured. So that's actually a pretty good way of working too. So I wanted to show you some examples. This is one from the UK. And what we're doing in London is a lot of infrastructure work in the city. And the idea is to turn over the work we've done in a way that's instantly you can tell where you are, and if there's ever an emergency, you know where to dig, where the gate valves are, where things are. So what we can do is use photogrammetry to actually do some reality capture and link that, like hyperlink it to actual survey points that we can see in real location, or we can actually put those in 3D, so you can use an augmented or virtual reality headset to see where they are. The byproduct of this was they were able to get the actual quantities of material being removed from there, and instead of paying the hauler to remove 2 by 3 meters of dirt by 2 meters deep, they can actually give the exact volume that they've taken out. So it's actually saving money as well too by using this kind of technology. And so the company that they were also looking into, AugView, you can take that information, put it into AugView, and use that to geolocate where your utilities are. So I wanted to give a shout out to them. This is a little old, so I'm not sure where we are with that now, but this is a company out of Australia that looks really promising. And the extension of that is bringing it into like a daiquiri headset or HoloLens or something, so you can get that augmented view when you're in the field or doing some maintenance work or have an emergency, and on a headset as well. So that's where we're heading with this right now. Okay. So that was part 2 on the headset kind of wearables and the hands-free. So obviously the takeaways there are you're looking down less, you have more environmental awareness. I know there's a lot of comments today about sound and hearing. So I think the different systems that I've seen, if you're looking at daiquiri, you actually move your head to move the mouse around. So there's not an issue, any noise or any kind of ambient conditions aren't a problem. But I think you'll probably get a sore neck after a while, so that there's probably a better way. The RealWear and other companies use noise canceling and sound, which is pretty useful. There must be even a better way than that, though. So there's got to be something to do with the protocols to communicate. So those are some things to think about. And so I guess a lot of the use cases have already been brought out today, so I won't go too much into the communication side of things. This next section is confidential, so I'm told that I can present it, but I can't give it out, so it's not really confidential. I don't know if you have your phones or anything like that, but this is from the University of Michigan, and they're doing some really interesting stuff. And what they're doing is partnering with us. We let them give them access to our projects, and we give them problems. One of the problems that we gave them was, will people wear wearables? Is there an issue in the industry with that? And their students sent out some surveys, and they found among younger people, they don't mind the wearables, but they want a social component, know where the buddy is, meet for lunch, stuff like that. The older workers tended to say, we'll wear it, but only if we see the real value for it. And this is in a non-union environment, so I know unions, change all that as well too. So they have a wristband, and it has a couple things. The motion sensing we're all used to, the heart rate. We've all heard about the great things the Apple Watches are doing, saving people's lives and knowing, the medical data. But they also measure the sweat, the galvanic response, which is really the stress that's happening on the jobs as well. And I'll show you in a minute why that matters. So this is just a cool graphic, makes me look smart, keep up with the guys from NASA, but I have no idea what's happening other than at lunchtime everyone calms down, which is a good thing. But, and also they do the same thing. You can wear a device like a reverse engineer gaming controller to measure your brain waves and measure the stress the same way with brain waves. And I think they have an ulterior motive here of reverse engineering this and turning it into a controller for construction equipment. But if they measure things on the job site and they know where they are, then they can look at the places where stress happens and you can figure out what's going on there. Some might be obvious, some might not be. So having workers with some kind of biometric device with the location, it might have some features that can help us figure out where the safety hazards are and stop stressful situation or a dangerous situation before it happens, and also note an individual worker when they're starting to get stressed out as well. Maybe, tell them to take a coffee break, or the lunch seems to work really well, so take another lunch, maybe that'll help. So from the biometric side, there's the social aspects. Didn't go too much into unions, but we're trying to get a few pilots with different companies around the country to do job site tracking for efficiency and safety. And a lot of times we don't even deal with the unions. We just think it's going to be a problem, so we haven't really even gone there. But I think there's this idea that organizations and unions won't go for it. So I think we have to spell out clearly what we're doing and make sure that they understand that this is only while you're on a dangerous construction site. While you're off the site, we don't follow you, but when you're on the site, we need to know where you are, for your own welfare, but also for accountability. And that works two ways. If someone hurt themselves and we don't believe them, they can prove it with their device as well too. There's also some overlap with medical devices. I know some companies don't want to get too much into the biometrics because then you have to go through different certifications as a medical device too. So for health and safety, you've heard a lot of them before, but I think the one that I thought was kind of cool is the alertness one, just making sure people are alert, and when they're not, maybe a way to tell them to take a rest or go home or something. Okay. So I think I have a lot of time for questions, so I didn't play the videos, but basically, this is all about the idea that we're enabled because we have things connecting and talking to each other. So we have the connectivity, the IoT. We have sensors that have some meaning now, and also we have the intelligence, the computers to process all that with the cloud or with AI. So I wanted to leave you with something kind of fun. So I thought if you have a perfect storm, you have to have a perfect stormtrooper. And what better wearable than like a stormtrooper helmet? So that was pretty cool. I think Darth Vader's got a pretty cool wearable as well. And I imagine there's an awful lot of augmented reality and things going on inside there. And then I wanted to finish not maybe with questions, but with problems or a problem. And just looking at Peggy's toolbox, we have IoT sensors and business intelligence. And maybe the questions you ask will come out of that toolbox. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So we have a couple minutes. So if we have any questions out in the audience, so we've got one over here. You can shout it out. We'll repeat it.
Regarding the back-end infrastructure of everything that you track, so everything that you showed was front-end, what it looks like, how you can engage it.
Yeah.
On the back, so specifically maybe talking to phase codes in construction, there can be 4 things going on in one place, right? At my company, we've got ceiling, floor, in-wall, outside wall, or outside wall. That's 4 things.
Yeah.
How do you know at a given time what a guy is working on while he's standing in one spot, or do you not care?
No, we care, and I think that's where lean construction comes more into it, doing more of the planning. I work for a construction manager, so we tend to subcontract out all the work, and we don't do the work directly for ourselves. But now there's this notion in the industry that we need to take more ownership and actually do the scheduling and get the trades to work amongst themselves where to go. So we can do the look-ahead schedules and more daily task planning. And from the daily task plan, with the ease of creating those boundaries and things, we could work out a work plan. We haven't done this yet, but this is in the near future, I think. We could create those task plans, tie them to either a 4D schedule or just manually do it every morning to set things up, and being willing to readjust them as the day goes on, because I'm sure that things change all the time.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're going to, so we don't want to miss the beer hour. We're going to keep things tight in the afternoon. But let's thank Albert again for a great presentation.
Okay,
that was a great demo, by the way.
Thanks.